A thrilling finish and 2 points helped to gloss over a less than impressive performance. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers, new FanDuel customers, can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, the LA Kings played game 65 of the 82-game NHL regular season, coming off a very impressive 3-0 shutout win over one of the top teams in the NHL, the Washington Capitals, on Thursday. LA was hosting the Nashville Predators, one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. Predators just played the night before, losing to the Ducks in Anaheim. Predators were also playing without their injured captain and star defenseman Roman Josi, and starting a young backup goalie in Justus Anonin. Add it all up, and this was a very winnable game for the Kings. And with how the Kings have played at home this season, frankly, this is a game that the Kings have no business not winning. Checking the starting lineup for the Kings, we would have Andrei Kopitar centering a line with Andrei Kuzmenko and Adrian Kempe. Philip Deneau would be centering Warren Foegele and Trevor Moore. Quentin Byfield centering Alex Laferriere and Kevin Fiala, and Samuel Hellenius centering Tanner Jeannot and Alex Turcotte. Akil Thomas and Trevor Lewis, your healthy scratches. As far as the defensive pairings, you'd have Mikey Anderson with Drew Doughty, Vladislav Gavrikov and Brant Clark, Joel Edmondson with Jordan Spence, and Jacob Moverar and Kyle Burrows, your healthy scratches as far as the defensemen. Fifth straight game the Kings have gone with this 12-6 setup and the exact same forward and defensive pairings. Your goaltender was Darcy Kemper, while David Riddick was the backup. Big question going to this game for me: would the Kings carry over their momentum from the last game, one of the best wins of the season, into this game, a winnable game against a lesser opponent? Well, the answer to that question was no. The Kings didn't look anything like the team that controlled the game and handled the powerful Washington Capitals. The Kings started very slow. They did have a nice little flurry of offense in the final minutes of the opening period, but had only a total of 4 shots on goal in what was a scoreless opening period for both teams. The second period was even worse for the Kings. 2 shots on goal in the second period. And the Kings had a power play chance in both the first and second periods as well, each resulting in just a single shot on goal. So through 2 periods, the Kings had 6 shots on goal. Now, fortunately, the Predators weren't that much better. They had 7 shots in the first period, 7 more in the second period. And more importantly, no goals on the board for Nashville. None for the Kings as well. We were scoreless going into the third period. And that's when it finally felt like the Kings were playing with a little bit of urgency. It did still feel like the first team to score a goal in this one was going to win the game. The Kings actually doubled their total number of shots in the third period than they had in the first 2 combined. 12 shots on goal in the third period. The Predators had 9, but we still didn't have anybody scoring goal. There were some close calls. The Kings did hit some goalposts and some crossbars, but we would go to overtime, and that was where, of course, Quentin Byfield would shine once again as he would score the overtime game winner, ending a night of frustration with a celebration and some smiles. Final score, Kings 1, Predators nothing in overtime. The Kings improved to 35, 12-9 on the season. They're 23, 3-4 at home. The Kings extended their winning streak to 5 in a row. They are back in second place in the Pacific Division. We will update you on the standings coming up. The Kings record, by the way, 26-20-9. I wanted to correct myself there because I knew when I said that didn't sound right. So the Kings back in second place in the Pacific Division. We will update the standings coming up. I did see friend of the show, Zach Dooley, the Kings insider, post this stat on social media. The LA Kings have now won 7 games this season when scoring 2 or fewer goals, and that is the most in the NHL. So I guess silver lining in this one. Well, first of all, Kings find a way to win. They had to get 2 points out of this game, and it wasn't pretty, but they did. But I think bigger picture, with that stat in mind, the Kings know how to win low-scoring, close games, which is not necessarily a bad thing. As far as the game stats in this one, Kings win at 1-0 in overtime. Shots on goal favored Nashville 24-21. 21 shots on goal is not good enough. It was in this game, but overall, you definitely want to see a lot more than that. Power plays, both teams going 0 for 2. Faceoffs favored the Kings 30-25. Hits favored Nashville 26-18. Block shots favored the Predators 21-9. So we'll give Nashville some credit as far as the low number of shots on goal for the Kings, as Nashville did do a pretty good job in blocking shots. But still, if you watch that game, there were plenty of opportunities for the Kings to get shots on goal. And, well, we'll talk more about that as we go along. So what was good for the LA Kings from a team standpoint in this game? Well, in the third period, they turned it on a bit, got more shots on goal, had more of a shot mentality. They played well defensively, not a lot of odd man rushes, not a great number of high quality scoring chances for Nashville. The penalty kill was once again very good. Over the last 3 games, the Kings have killed off 15 consecutive power plays now. Kings did a better job of staying out of the penalty box in this game, something they haven't done over the last couple of games. They were called for only 2 penalties, and one of them, frankly, was bullcrap. Tanner Jeannot called for an illegal hit to the head when the replay clearly showed that he did not make any contact with the head of the Predators player. To that player's credit, or perhaps not credit, embellishing, got the call. Referees did, the referees called what they thought they saw, not what they saw. Yeah, I will say I understand to a point why the Kings don't draw a lot of penalties. We've talked about it before. They don't have a lot of players that make, big one-on-one moves where you beat a player and then he ends up trying to hook you or hold you. But I don't really get why the Kings seem to not be getting a lot of calls as far as, well, I guess what I want to say is they're getting called for a lot of penalties this year. It seems like to me they're not getting the benefit of the doubt. And I don't really understand why, because it's not like the Kings are a super aggressive physical team. Now they're a hard-working defensive team, but they don't get the benefit of the doubt much, it seems to me. Or maybe I'm just wearing my Kings colored goggles, but that seems to me that's the case. So what was not very good from a team standpoint for the Kings in this one? Well, obviously the shots on goal for the first 2 periods were pretty atrocious. The Kings were, we talked about some of the block shots for Nashville. They were trying to get shots, but not doing a good enough job in that regard overall. Kings did have too many opportunities where they missed the net or overpassed. We've seen that this year as a problem at times, but it was a big problem for most of this game. Crazy to me that after 4 shots on goal in the first period, the Kings would come out and get 2 in the second. I would think after the first period, we were like, hey, boys, 4 shots on goal, man. That is not good enough. We got to really turn it on this period. And then they went out and got 2 less in the next period. At some point, you would just think that Jim Hiller or Andrei Kopitar or Drew Doughty certainly is not a guy who holds his tongue. It would just be screaming on the bench, guys, shoot the puck on net from anywhere. No shot's a bad shot. Don't turn down any chance to put it on net. But through 2 periods, it really wasn't the case. And again, the Kings are more of a blue-collar team when they score their goals. But again, 21 total shots on goal, plus 3 periods, plus overtime as well, 21 total shots. That needs to be better. It just needs to be better. So the Kings were fortunate to win this game. The coach's quote from head coach Jim Hiller on getting so few shots through the first 2 periods, he said, quote, I think everybody tried to just remain calm again, not pour gas on the fire in that instance. I think the players, we weren't sharp. Let's be honest. How many times did we ice the puck and seemingly, right on our tape and we miss it? So we were not sharp. That's very clear. But I think everybody was still pretty calm, understanding that if you get too angry and frustrated, then things just don't usually turn out for you. So maintain your focus. Kopi does a great job of that. Just stick with it, and you hope something good happens. That was one of those games where we could have lost it pretty easily, but I think the maturity of the team shined through, end quote. So my big takeaway from this game, talked about it after the win over Washington. The Kings are 10-0 at home against teams that are currently in the top 3 of each of the 4 divisions. In other words, at home, the Kings beat the best of the best. Meanwhile, the Kings have 7 total home losses this year, 4 in regulation and 3 in overtime or a shootout. And those losses are to Vancouver twice, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Anaheim, Chicago, and St. Louis. Not one of those teams is in a playoff spot right now and likely won't be. Now, Vancouver is hanging around. St. Louis is kind of hanging around. But I guess you could take away from that the Kings do play up or down to the level of their competition, certainly on home ice anyway. So, look, the Kings needed to win that game. They needed 2 points. They're in a battle right now for home ice in the first round of the playoffs, which could be incredibly important for them. So you can't leave 2 points on the table against a team like Nashville. You just can't. So they find a way to win. That's good. Was it a great performance? Clearly not. But in the end, get the job done, take the 2 points, and hopefully move on and play better going forward. All right, up next, we will look at some of the individual performances for the Kings and their win over the Predators. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's when I turned to Trade. That's the name of the company, Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curated over 450 amazing roasts, and whether you're into new coffee or know exactly what you want, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. The subscription makes it so easy. There's no last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever's on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off of your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. And March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you your chance to win and get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game preps. UCLA is a plus 10,000 to win the national championship. That's a pretty big underdog. Got a lucky feeling about the Bruins? We'll go to FanDuel and take a chance at glory. With tournament games happening almost every day, there is always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, let's talk about some individual performances in the win over the Nashville Predators. And, of course, we'll start with the man in net, Darcy Kuemper, 24 saves for his second straight shutout, fourth shutout of the season. It was also Kemper's 200th career victory. According to a friend of the show, the Kingstorian, he's on X or Twitter at Kingstorian, Darcy Kuemper is the first Kings goalie to post back-to-back shutouts since Darcy Kuemper in 2018. He did it with shutouts back in 2018 on January 20th and February the 3rd. Kuemper was very good in this game. Now, I mentioned it earlier, the Predators didn't have a lot of quality scoring chances from like high danger areas, but they did have some shots on goal that Kuemper had to make some above average saves on. Kuemper getting the win, improving to 12-0-1 in his last 13 home starts, 14-1-2 overall at Crypto.com Arena. And he's now 22-8-7 overall on the season. And he looks like he's getting locked in for the postseason, which is exciting. And I did want to say, when GM Rob Blake, makes a trade that doesn't really work out, we're certainly going to hold his feet to the fire on that. And I will certainly admit that it wasn't like he was really looking to get Darcy Kemper when we shipped out Pierre-Luc Dubois for him. I'm not saying he didn't want him. Obviously, he did. He agreed to the trade, but it was more about getting rid of PLD and getting his contract away from us. And we got back a goalie who we knew and were familiar with and thought, he could bounce back and maybe give us something. But in the end, did Rob Blake probably really think Darcy Kemper was going to be this good? Probably not. But he acquired him, and it's worked out great, and he's doing a hell of a job in net for the Kings. And so you got to give Rob Blake some credit for bringing in Darcy Kemper. It has really, really worked out so far for the LA Kings, and I'm feeling pretty good, and you should too, about where the Kings are as far as their goaltender going into the playoffs this year. Quinton Byfield, 6 straight games with a goal for Q. Last player to score a goal in 6 straight games for the LA Kings, Hall of Famer Luc Robitaille, back in the 1992-93 season. Luke finished with a 10-game goal streak that year. For Byfield, he now has 3 overtime game winners this season. He has 4 game-winning goals overall. And I don't know about you, but when I was watching that game in overtime, and Byfield started the overtime, which he should, but then he got off the ice, and I was like, get Byfield back out there, get Byfield back out there. And just think about that for a second. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was thinking that. How awesome is it that we now as Kings fans are yelling at our TVs or yell if we're at the game yelling, we got to get Q back in. We got to get Q back in. That's pretty exciting to know that we're looking for him to score big goals, because he's starting to score big goals and come up big in big moments. And he did it again. And so he's doing it now in the regular season. Obviously, the playoffs are a different level and a whole different level of pressure. And hopefully he can step up his game in the playoffs as well, because I would say he and Darcy Kemper are probably the 2 key players, I think, for the Kings that they've got to come through in the playoffs, with obviously Kemper's in the spotlight more because of the position he plays. But the Kings should and expect Quinton Byfield now, I think, to be a playoff performer. I'm not saying he's going to score, 6 goals in 6 straight playoff games or something like that. I mean, great if he did, but I think he is someone the Kings need to start to expect and rely on to come up big in big games. And he's been doing it of late, and it's pretty exciting. 17 goals now in the season for Byfield. He now has 40 points on the year. Adrian Kempe, while Q gets the flowers for getting the overtime game winner, don't sleep on Adrian Kempe getting Quinton Byfield the game-winning opportunity. Kempe winning a battle in the corners, spinning towards the net, and finding Quinton Byfield at the side of the net for that tap-in goal. Great play by Kempe, who was pretty quiet most of the night, especially for his standards, but came up with a big play when the Kings needed it as well in setting up Quinton Byfield for the overtime game winner. That's 27 assists now on the season for Adrian Kempe, to go along with his 27 goals as well. 54 points now on the season for Kempe. Kevin Fiala. So I've been saying that I would like to see Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala combine for 8 shots on goal per game. And it was pointed out by one of our everydayers during our fan feedback show that that's probably not very realistic, considering that there are only 4 players in the NHL who are averaging 4 shots on goal per game. And that he said 6 is probably a more realistic goal. And I agreed with him. It is. But for me, I say aim high. Tell them you want 4 per game from them. And, if they fall short, that's still pretty good. But probably not a coincidence that in the game where the Kings scored 1 goal and were shut out for 3 regulation periods, that Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala combined for 1 shot on goal. Kevin Fiala was not credited with a shot on goal. He did have 1 go off the goalpost, so he did get close. And, obviously that's not what we're looking for. It certainly isn't like they're not getting a ton of ice time. Kempe played over 20 minutes. Fiala played over 21 minutes. For those 2 guys to play that much and combine for 1 shot on goal, that's not good enough. They shouldn't be happy about that. And honestly, they should have 1 shot on goal per period, not a combined 1 shot on goal per an entire game. So again, probably not a coincidence the Kings struggle to score some goals when their 2 best goal scorers combined for 1 shot on goal. I did want to mention Brant Clark. He had the secondary assist on the overtime game winner, made a pretty nice play down the ice to Adrian Kempe, picks up his 23rd assist of the season and his 28th point of the season. He is tied with Quinton Byfield for fourth most assists on the team, and he leads all defensemen in points this season. And I will say, honestly, when he was on the ice in overtime, I was not that confident. I was like, oh, no, I don't know about Brandt Clarke in overtime. But give credit to head coach Jim Hiller, showing some confidence in a young player. A lot of open ice to be able to try and show off his skills. And you got to believe that that is valuable experience for Brandt Clarke coming up to get to play in big moments, in big overtime games. So hopefully that will help his confidence and as he continues to develop into hopefully a special player for the LA Kings. Andrei Kuzmenko, we're still waiting for him to get his first point, but the team is 5-0 with him in the lineup, so I don't think many people are going to complain about his no points so far. I still think he looks pretty good. He's very active, pretty effective when the Kings are, cycling the puck in the zone, when he can use his stopping and starting ability. And I have noticed he's really good at passing the point to the puck. He gets it out to the defenseman, and he puts it right on their stick. They don't have to reach for it or work too hard to get it. So waiting for Andrei Kuzmenko to finally get that point. But again, since he's joined the team, the Kings are winning. So all good from that standpoint. As far as some of the team leaders in the win over Nashville, Quinton Byfield gets the only goal. Mentioned Kempe and Brandt Clarke had the only assists. 5 Kings players had 2 shots on goal, tied for the team lead. Only one of them was a forward, Warren Fogle. So only one Kings forward had more than 1 shot on goal. That was Warren Fogle. Tanner Jeannot led the Kings with 3 hits. Only one defenseman was credited with a hit in the game. That was Jordan Spence. Tanner Jeannot had 2 block shots to lead the team. Drew Doughty led the team in ice time exactly 25 minutes. And Andrei Kopitar led the Kings in winning faceoffs. He won 9 and lost 4. And Samuel Helenius actually won 4 of the 6 draws he took as well. So that's great for a fourth-line young center like that to have a good night in the faceoff circle. Did want to mention, and I had actually forgotten about this until I heard his name, but former King defenseman Andreas Englund was playing in this game for the Nashville Predators. Played 17 minutes and 27 seconds, had 1 shot on goal, 2 block shots, 2 hits. 10 games with Nashville this season. After being claimed off waivers from the Kings, he has no points. He is a -3 with the Predators. All right, coming up next, we hand out our 3 stars of the game in the win over the Predators, and we update you on the Pacific Division standings. That's next. You're on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, and you can stop just managing your money, but start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan the long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, time to name our 3 stars of the game. And by the way, did you know that the 3 stars of the game originated from a marketing initiative in the 1930s by Imperial Oil to promote their 3-star gasoline brand? Not surprising that it's somehow tied in with a sponsor, but kind of a crappy story. But the 3 stars of the game is a time-honored and fun hockey tradition. That said, I kind of take it seriously. When I pick the 3 stars, I try to pick either the best 3 players in the game, usually just for the Kings, only when they win. And sometimes it's just who is the most impactful as well. But again, it's for fun. I don't want to take it too seriously. But for example, Quinton Byfield was named the number 1 star in the game by the LA Kings last night. He's not my number one star because I don't think he was the best player in the game. So just saying. All right, let's unveil my 3 stars of the night in the win over Nashville. The number 3 star is Adrian Kempe with a great play in overtime to feed Quinton Byfield for the overtime game winner. Quinton Byfield with the OT game winner is my number 2 star, but the number 1 star of this game is clearly goaltender Darcy Kemper. He was the best player on the ice for the Kings. He was the most impactful player. Q had the best moment of the night, but the best player of the game, the number 1 star, is Kings goaltender Darcy Kemper. Let's check the Pacific Division standings. It is getting crunch time in the NHL. The top team in the Pacific is the Vegas Golden Knights. 29-19-8 is the record for 86 points. They lost in Buffalo on Saturday, but they did lose in overtime, so they pick up a point. They will be in action once again on Sunday, taking on Detroit. The LA Kings have moved back into second place in the Pacific Division, record of 36-20-9, 81 points. So they're 5 points back of Vegas for first place. And so, look, they still have hopes of maybe catching the Golden Knights, but we know right now it's more about the Edmonton Oilers. And right now the Kings are 1 point up on Edmonton. They still have 1 game in hand against the Oilers and 2 head-to-head matchups, 1 in Edmonton, 1 in LA coming up. Those are obviously going to be huge games. The Oilers are 38-24-4 for 80 points. They'll be playing on Sunday in New York against the Rangers. Let's go Rangers. Also, I'll mention Calgary is in 4th place in the Pacific, 30-24-11 for 71 points. So they're 10 points behind the Kings right now, 9 points behind the Oilers as they look to try and maybe, I think 3rd place, 2nd and 3rd place, it's either going to be the Kings or the Oilers. I think Golden Knights will probably hold on to the top spot. And I think Calgary is clearly going to be the 4th team in the Pacific and maybe a wild card team going forward. But again, right now, the intrigue, the interest for us certainly is Kings, Oilers. Where are they in the standings? Who gets 2nd place? Who gets home ice in a potential first round matchup? And right now, if the playoffs started today, it would be the LA Kings. All right, so the Kings are back in action on Monday. They are in Minnesota. They're going to take on the Wild. Mini 2-game road trip for the LA Kings as they will be playing in Minnesota on Monday, and then they're in Chicago coming up on Thursday. And for the Kings and the Wild, that is a 5 p.m. LA time start on Monday. And you can see it on the FanDuel Sports Network locally, ESPN Plus nationally, and you can hear it on the 710 ESPN app. And right now, the Minnesota Wild are the number 1 wildcard team in the West. So pretty good team. Will be a challenge against for the LA Kings going into that one. So they'll have to play, I would say, much better than they did against the Nashville Predators. We know it has not been the smoothest of roads, literally, on the road for the LA Kings. So need to play a much, much better game against Minnesota coming up on Monday. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked on LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday, we will have a recap of that Kings Wild game shortly after its conclusion. Give you a breakdown, give you analysis on all that happened in that game. If you want to send us an email at any point in the week for our fan feedback show or for anything else, the email address lockedoneddie, EDDIE, @gmail.com. Post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section, and stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings, go.